All right, welcome back. It's now time for us to get into the People and Politics segment. And today, let's talk about issues that's affecting us, some of the things that are current today. And in me in studio, I have got Dr. Joseph Rotich, who is a political analyst. I have got in the middle Tabitha Ogutu, who is governance expert and political analyst. And lastly, Wakili Warungu Mwangi, who is an advocate of the High Court as well as political analyst. Ladies and gentlemen, karibuni sana. Thank you sana. Good morning. First of all, the question is, do you have degrees? Daktari, do you have a degree? Or
I don't think that should be...
Or your question, that question is of the highest degree?
It's not about the highest degree, Oloo. I think the moral upright should be key in everything that we are doing, not about academic qualifications and all those. Yes. My mom has no degree, but she's been able to keep us alive to date.
But when you confirm, when you just compare the days of our grandmothers, our grandfathers, they were taught by the colonialists.
The only difference between us and them is that we have paper degree, but they are more expert than us in most of what they are.
They have wisdom.
Yeah.
Really? Tabitha?
That is the degree of the age. But now, when we want our leaders to get some offices, they have to be professionally qualified. So the degree is very necessary.
It's very necessary.
Yes. Because
Wakili, it's quite interesting that some of them are still students from different universities.
You can imagine.
Yes. For me, it's true. I have a degree. I was awarded with an LLB from an ISO certified university.
Good.
Having a degree is reminiscent of having knowledge, especially for governors and for the president.
Yes.
There is a reason why it was put as a requirement when you want to pass that test of being a candidate with the IEBC.
Yeah.
So I support it. And the 4 years that someone go through a tertiary or a university are very important vis-a-vis someone who is there probably out missing on those 4 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Because Tabitha, you know, this actually, the issue of degree has just opened another lead of kind of whatever is happening on the streets. This is just an example of kind of leaders we have. Perhaps some of them have just gone scot-free, or even the common mwananchi out there, probably because of a reason or another. But what does this show as a country?
I think, Victor, for us as a country, first of all, we have been talking about our education system, our 844 education system, which to some extent has failed to equip the common Kenyan with the knowledge transit into the job market, because we have seen a churning out of so many graduates at the end of every academic year with no job market. And therefore, I think what our politicians are confirming is that you can literally survive being a Kenyan, having highest officers in terms of responsibility, at the same time lacking a degree. But the worst of it all is the nature of our politicians and incompetency, because there is no way we are going to have our leaders lying about forging their degrees, being in university that they've never heard of, trying to bring list of this and that and the other one. Now, you can imagine if that is the kind of leadership model we're having, and they're supposed to be the role models to the young people. What message are they literally selling in terms of us enhancing our education system and even having our youth educated at the utmost levels and reaching professionalism? So I think, first of all, we need to literally crack, I think, the whip on this kind of leaders, because as Wakili said right before I spoke, there are officers in this country which we cannot just be giving leaders who have not duly undergone training and befitting enough to have those officers in terms of education. That is how education makes somebody to literally lead people in a way that is professional. And maybe this explains why some of our leaders are very crooked, I'm sorry to say. And maybe sometimes you look at them and wonder which university they went to, and they have very good university titles, and boom. You know, it shows that there are so many leaders who lack the degree, and they have the degrees from forged, river road papers, and maybe it's just about that time maybe the government needs to start looking at some of these qualifications the leaders portray to have and they don't.
Daktari, what's your take?
I think, Oloo, I'm still trying to come up to terms that a degree can bring a whole different in your life if you don't have some knowledge and some wisdom that is you are born with. Why I'm saying so, Oloo, we have had leaders who have never had any degree, and they were the best leaders that we have ever had in the world, not necessarily Kenya. And in any case, Oloo, if a degree or having a degree will add value to your knowledge, that is properly what I personally support. But to have it as a measure of success, to have it as a point whereby if you don't have, you'll not succeed, I think that is where we are failing, Oloo. We have had the most successful business people, and they are leaders in their own capacity. We have had the most successful church leaders, and they are successful in their capacity, without degrees. We have had even politicians, I'm told there are about 40 who don't have a degree, even in our current parliament. And in this case, Oloo, some of them have even performed in their own constituencies better off than those people who possess the so-called degree. So in this case, it should not be a measure of success.
Doctor, what are you saying?
It should be a measure of
you are a doctor.
Maybe a minute.
Let me highlight
having that title of a doctor means a lot.
Let me tell you,
know.
You did a degree, 4 years, did
when
masters.
you talk about a doctor, or a doctor in economics, you have specialized. You have just specialized in that part.
Right.
In politics, we should be saying those who have specialized in political sciences. That is what we should be asking for, not a degree in economics, not a degree in whatever biology. I mean, if we are really serious in our parliament,
yes,
that we need to have people who are capable of delivering, then we should go for those people who have done political science and not any other subject.
Are you aware that there's some members of parliament who actually never spoke a word? The day they were sworn in, that was the last. When you go to the Hansard, they are nowhere in the Hansard.
But have you ever also studied what they have done in their backyards, in their constituency?
Now that is the question. You are a doctor, and I should be asking you.
So no, what I'm explaining to you, we have heard of so many rumors. I mean, I call it a rumor or a scandal. People have talked about Sudi. People have talked about who and who and who. But go to Sudi's backyard. He's a performer. He has done it. And now, how can you now bring your certificates on top of Sudi to perform better than what he has done?
Okay, Tabitha,
I am really...
This is a matter of performance and requirement by law.
Okay. Dr. has said that the degree literally is not a measure of success. Nobody is measuring anybody's success at this point. It's a requirement by law. If the law states clearly that for you to be a governor in this country, you have to have a degree, that's it.
If you want to have a driving license, you must be above 18.
Yes, and if you have to be a driver in this country and drive on a road, you have to have a driving license. There has to be a bottom line for everything. And I think it will be misleading for us to sit here on a national television and tell people that it's not good enough for our legislators or our leaders to have the degrees. I mean, education is as good as you being a leader having it. And even as we advance, as Kenyans, we want our kids to have the best of educations, then our leaders need to lead from the upfront. And that explains why some of the leaders is calling their names here today. When you hear them speak, you even wonder, did they even attend a school and learn about etiquette? Because even what they get from their mouth is out of it. So education is very important. We should not underscore it. As much as it's not a measure for success, it's very important. We should get education, Victor.
Wakili.
There are very serious constitutional function and laws bestowed in every different of levels of leadership.
Yes.
May it be the presidency, the governorship, and the MP. Especially for the MP, there are very three serious constitutional laws: legislative, oversight, and representation. So I don't know how you'll be able to oversight and audit a report for the Auditor General if you don't have some certain understanding and some certain knowledge. And I'm not discussing about wisdom. Sometimes there is normally a very big there is normally a very big difference between.
That's exactly what Dr. was talking about. Because our parents had wisdom.
Also, fools grow old.
Yeah, but having a degree, may it be from the marketing, law, political science, it gives you an upper hand in terms of understanding constitutional laws and functions.
Yes.
Vis-a-vis having wisdom in terms of doing business, farming, or any other thing. So there is another where there was that legal caveat And for me, I'll be analyzing from a school of thought of a positivist rather than a realist. In this case, we need the degree. That knowledge of 4 years is very key in terms of having the leadership.
Yeah.
And of course, understanding many laws. I don't know how you'll be able to legislate when you don't have any knowledge. I've been an advisor to the Senate Directorate of the Legal Service, and I tell you, doing a legislative drafting is not an easy thing. So I think that caveat that has been put, it should be followed and make sure that every governor has a degree.
All right. You know, Tabitha, at the end of the day, the issue of having degrees, some of these leaders, what does it show even to the younger generation? People are still in school. Because when you look at, for example, when you look at the Daily Nation, we have got Taita Governor Granton Samboja, who is a governor. We have got Simbarati, who wants to be governor in Kisii. We have got Mithika Linturi, Meru Senator, who is an eloquent gentleman. We have got now Sakaja, who is battling the case right now at the Milimani Law Courts with the IEB's tribunal. And now we have got Kakamega Senator Cleophas Malala. When you have got these 5 gentlemen, and we have got young Kenyans who are still going through the education system, they look at these people. What does it really show to the society?
I think, first of all, this electioneering period and the requirements for some of these leaders, and it's really hard for them to be able to get these positions because they don't have a degree, has made it very significant and given a direction for those young people who want to vie for these positions in future. And therefore, for us to avoid any of this moving forward, embarrassment and lies and forgery, we can't be corrupt everywhere, corrupt even in a degree acquirement. So therefore, it has shown for the young people that they literally need to get the education and the papers very right. Secondly, what Daktari said earlier, that as a country, it has shown that degree and success, they are like east and west as far apart they are. But I would like to say that getting education is a fundamental requirement for growth of any human being. Because education, its purpose is not to mostly get you rich or what. If it gets you there, it's okay. But it has the purpose of increasing your knowledge, making you teachable, adaptable, and being able to interpret some of these things. So you can imagine a legislator whom is voted into the office and cannot even interpret the constitutions, the clauses, and even when there's an amendment bill to be passed in the parliament, literally, it becomes very hard for them to comprehend because they do not understand the value of, understanding some of these things. Education makes even your understanding to broaden up. So we cannot sit down here and tell our young people that literally because, and you see our politicians are just politicians, many of them are not leaders, and we are now seeing it, that we are telling the young people that getting education should be second. If you get that opportunity to be in school, I think it's very important because there are opportunities, there are just how education makes you world-read. So we cannot underscore that, Victor.
Dr. you are under fire.
I think what we must understand, although, when I talk about somebody being educated, it doesn't matter so much that you must have a degree. There are those who have diploma courses and they are very qualified personnel. There are those who have had certificate courses, they are very qualified personnel. And in this case, Oloo, when you talk of a measure of a degree, I mean, we should be able to differentiate an educated person and somebody who is non-educated. I mean, even those people who have certificates and diplomas, they are also educated people who are able to lead. So when you top up a measure of a degree, of course, I don't refute that, Oloo. What I was just saying is that if you are educated to the level of a diploma or a certificate or a Form 4 in this case, how many members of parliament who are in the current parliament, very competent members of parliament, and they are just merely Form 4s? I mean, when did we discover that these people are non-performers, especially when it comes to legal or legal, not even legal matters, but the procedures of the capacities that they are actually holding? So in this case, putting a level or a condition for a qualification in our country, yes, it is very relevant and it is very good. But that should not be a strict measure of one's performance.
But at least we agree at this particular point that the crafters of this particular law and the requirement had it as one of the limits.
It was right.
That you must have a degree for you to be a governor, because being a governor is it's a big deal. It's not like a member of
huge,
exactly next to the president. So you don't have a degree. You have a certificate, Form 4 certificate, for example, and you are a governor. Think of it.
I think my sister Tabitha actually mistook me, and in fact she does it because you cannot be corrupt in everything. I don't know what she meant. Anyway, she will elaborate more on that. But what I'm trying to say is that when you talk about a level of a degree, level of a master's degree, and a level of what that the law has actually stipulated in, I mean that is a perfect way of improving our leadership in all the capacities. So I totally agree with that. But what I was just explaining is that it should not be so strict as to the level that some people are denied of their leadership. That's of course, when I have my brother, he's a lawyer by profession, and he sticks to the evidence that you once, if you have a degree, a first degree as stipulated, that is a requirement for a parliamentarian. To him, if he will take you to go today, he will stand by you and say he has the degree that is required. So in his profession, I totally agree with him. He sticks to the evidence. And
right. The same way, just to bring you in, Warungu, as you respond to that, because you know what? In a legal profession, there has to be some requirements, all right?
Yeah.
Kenya School of Law, you must pass there. If you don't, go back to class. That is required, all right?
Yeah.
As a member of County Assembly, they had that issue. You must be a Form 4 leaver, you must be a Harvard diploma holder, certificate, degree certificate, and even masters, if that's so required. But then now, at this particular point, this one exposes the kind of leader that you have, much as it never existed before. But right now, he's exposing us to the world. Wakili?
Yes, I think a lack of having that caveat in terms of knowledge of the name, in the name of that degree, has turned our politics to be a game of charlatans. So that's why the drafters of this particular law and the Constitution had this one in mind, and majorly trying to bring hygienic in our politics. It's quite very necessary. If you go through the Constitution,
yes,
you'll see there are very serious functions and laws expected to be implemented either by the governor of or the member of the county assembly or an MP. And I think even going forward, we also need a member of the county assembly who have a certain degree of knowledge, and even going higher to having a degree. Because remember, they also play the same role as the member of parliament. That's why we are having a lot of county assemblies having very insufficient bills and laws, or poorly drafted laws. So I think also going forward, we need to put a very serious legal caveat in terms of the knowledge, even in the MCs and the other members of the parliament.
Right. Tabitha, what's quite interesting is that in this list, I'm not seeing ladies. This is
Yes.
As per this newspaper, I don't know whether there's some names which are before the IEBC, but as per this newspaper, we have got 5 gentlemen. I mean,
strong one.
That's why I'm asking you.
Yes, what does it say about us? But you see, Victor, maybe there are women leaders who also do not have degrees, but we're still waiting. We cannot assume that they're not there. Maybe they're not just there or they're there. But the thing is, it's also a good indicator that women are also trying to get these degrees, get educated, have their things in order so that we are not inconvenienced. Because you see, Victor, even as we speak about elective politics and we want to increase the numbers of women, even in the gubernatorial positions in this country, then it's just a requisite that women prepare themselves enough. And it's an encouragement that we have seen that literally they understand the task and actually what will befell us if we do not get this kind of requirements at the end of the day. So I think it's a good indication that out of the, I don't know, this electoral period, how many women governors are running. So none of them is going to be disqualified on the basis of not having a degree. So that is a point towards the right direction. And I think it's very encouraging to see that.
Does it mean that men are survivors? They can survive either way, the jungle, come back to the limelight and survive, but ladies have to fight it through the hard paths. But then, Dr. You know, this on education, because when you talk of a degree, first of all, you will be employed. That's the bottom line. When you're a governor, you will be employed and you'll be earning a salary at the end of every month. So according to the requirement, you must have a certain level of degree and of qualification for you to earn that money, all right? Much as you're a politician. But as per the remuneration, you must have that for you to earn that, all right? But let me ask you, what does this really show to the kind of leaders we have today? Because when you have got these gentlemen going through the tribunal, some of them, either they are fake, they are allegations, they're still going through the legal process. But the kind of leaders we have in the House, is it going to sanitize the next crop of leaders that will be elected come next election?
I think what we are doing at the moment, what the IPC is doing, Oloo, is something that is very commendable. And it is something that must be supported by all.
Yeah.
But also we must also that we are coming from a background whereby we have not even been able to check the kind of credible institutions offering this education of higher learning. And it is now that we are coming to terms to ask, where was your university? What was the level of the accredited university? That we are talking about. And in any case, some years back, although if we go back to our country, there are days when most of our Kenyans used to fly outside the country for further studies. Yeah. And there were a lot of them. And we've not been able to go through to scrutinize which university.
What changed? Because that somehow changed.
It has changed because we have developed our local universities. I can remember, although by those days when we went outside the country, there were very few universities that we had. And even there were a lot of conditions that were actually put on them. You get about 2, 3, 4 universities in the country. And of course, with the many qualifiers who actually intended to join the institutions of higher learning, and they could not make it within the country. Now that the country have discovered that they can develop their own institutions. And I want to thank this country so much because institution-wise, we have come up with a lot of universities. Even though we are yet to talk about their credibility and all sorts of things, we are able to tell how many universities you have. But in this case, Oloo, we also have online studies that is actually still allowed. And in this case, how credible are those, online kind of education or trainings? I mean, even before we talk about the quality of what we have, we also must see the background under which these people have actually been studying. Yeah. So in that case, Oloo, we still have a lot of work to do as Kenyans. But of course, what the IBC is actually doing is a credible thing. But you look at these people, they have been, these are the guys that have been trying for the last how many weeks to prove their certificates that they are right. And you wonder why it has taken that long. And even the longer it will take, the more eyebrows will be caused. So in this case, there are problems a lot that we must address as Kenyans.
I think, Victor, from my point of view, there is no two ways about this. The Constitution is, none of us is above the Constitution. So if the Constitution stipulates or requires us to meet a certain demand for us to be something, then it should be served as it is. So in this case, it's not about the quality or what you scored or what was offered online or whatever. What the IBC is requiring for our legislators to have at the level that you are vying for is a certified degree from a recognized institution. And that is period. And that is very fine.
Wakili, some would argue that this is political, as politicians would say.
We live in a country where we politicize everything. This one is not political. It's both a constitutional and a requirement from the enabling political and election laws. Just like my sister has said, you need a degree from a recognized university in Kenya, a photocopy to be certified. If it's a foreign university, then you need a recognition from the Commission of University Education. So it's only that we have decided to politicize the matter. So I think it's a direct question, a direct answer is your certificate certified by a local university, or if it's like for the case of Sakaja, is the team's university in Uganda, recognized by the Commission of the University Education, and can you be able to prove by the way of evidence that you really went through that particular university, and can the university also be able to testify under the oath that you also went through that university? So I think those are the pertinent questions that we need to answer, not unless the law is amended. For me today, I told you I'll be a positivist analyst, a departure from my earlier, where I'm normally a realist analyst.
But then it can be a time-consuming process. We all know the legal battles and the procedures and the processes.
Well, it can be very time-consuming, but remember, we did not say that someone did not make a decision that you'll run for this particular post in April or February. It's something that you may have made a decision 1 year or 1 year and a half. So in the interest of making a decision, you may have taken time to go through the requirements needed, and make sure, probably decided whether you have or you can fulfill the same before you go for that particular level of the city world. You had asked why we are not having women having this issue. Women tend to be a bit genuine and bona fide compared to men. Women are not as a risk taker as men. Even when I don't have a degree, I would wish to take the risk of going through the process. And even when I'm taken to task, I would also wish to politicize the process and make sure that I push and pull over. But for women, they seem to be a bit bona fide and genuine. If they don't have a degree, I don't think none of them would try to take a risk or try to pull and push through the process.
That explains more about nature. That explains more about nature, how the difference between men and women. But then, Tabitha, this one perhaps will act as a deterrent to the next generation, because election will come again after 5 years. So the current crop of leaders, perhaps some of them will not come back after this election, that is 2027. Looking forward in the next 5 years, the same rule and law will still apply. Give me a scenario, 5 years to come.
Okay. First of all, I think it's very sad as a nation that the only time we get to appreciate our education is when now politics is involved. That is why we draw the line.
Yes.
We have not seen this country creating such a scenario where we have people with degrees, maybe let's say even in business or economics, or even other fields, and there is a surge of jobs. So we want them to bring literally their papers so that we can give them employment. We have not seen that. So this is where we draw the line. So I think even in the next 5 years, we have new legislators coming in. I think also it's a waking up call that we are not going to have incidences like this in the future, because I think it also paints you as a very incompetent, inconsistent leader when you cannot really substantiate what you bring on table in terms of your credentials. So I think none of the leaders will want to be perceived like that, because leadership is about perception sometimes when it comes to politics. Secondly, I think that we are going now to take our leadership roles more seriously and in respect to the requirements by the law. So I think this time also we have seen actually the law serving very supreme, and IBC in the past has been seen to be not very honest or deliberate when it's conducting some of these things. And for the first time, we are seeing it coming out and literally doing what it's supposed to do as stipulated in the Constitution and helping to implement those particular articles and clauses. So I think moving forward in 5 years, we are going to see clarity, and we are going to have law-abiding leaders who know that they're not supreme to any constitution. And by the way, I really think like this, Victor. For you to be a leader for 5 or 10 years, you served, and you really knew somewhere inside you'll be vying for a more superior seat, and you're just there somewhere, knowing literally you do not have the qualifications, but you've been gathering support here and there this time, and actually you have people who really had faith in you, and you did not take your time to get the requisite credentials for you to have this, and you literally know that the law is clear about you, your position, and what you should have.
And it's not an emergency.
It's not an emergency. Then it shows that these leaders, they had something in mind. Maybe they wanted to corrupt the system, or maybe they wanted to cook something. So also that is a question of, what is the mentality of our leaders when it comes to doing things right? Thank you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Doctor, let's take a break, and when we come back, I'll just get your final word on that, as well as answer this question. This is what the common Mwananchi feels, because now it exposes these leaders. It's like a job interview. As a requirement, present your paper. If you're not qualified, you go home. We have got millions of young people who are out there with degrees. Some of them are looking for jobs that they can't find. And these leaders, quote unquote, allegedly got those degrees, and they have got their lucrative jobs. The same thing local common Mwananchi is feeling out there on the street. We'll respond to that after this break, as we also get into the issue of the 50+1 vote. How is it going to pan out in the next 55 days to come? Let's take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now, let's talk about the issue of degree as we come to the final bit of it and get to the next one. So, Dr. let me get this issue. The question of it's a requirement by law, and the government appreciates that there are so many young people out there with degrees but don't have jobs. So you can compare what these gentlemen are going through in the hands of IEBC, who is going through the vetting process, vetting them, so to speak. We can equate them to the young Kenyans out there with degrees but have no jobs. They're feeling the pinch as well.
I think, Oloo, I must appreciate that what the IEBC demands is demanding what is required by the law. It's actually a condition. And the reflection from few of our leaders, whom they have been struggling to paint themselves that they have the degrees when they really don't have, has actually painted the young society of Kenyans, I mean the graduates, in a very bad way. Why is that I'm saying so, Oloo, is that our leaders must remain always as role models of our young nation. And in this case, when they are seen on the screen struggling to prove what they don't have, in the attempt to remain relevant where they are irrelevant, that in itself is painting us very wrongly, not necessarily within the country, but internationally. So I think what I'm really anticipating, Oloo, to see in the future, we are anticipating to see people who are more educated in leadership. As my legal friend has actually said that we must always remain relevant in the areas that we are actually working on. Say, if you what can you, if you are in advisors or some committee of legal committee, if you don't have any education, even on simple legal matters, or maybe if you are not an accountant, to be able to, answer some of the audit reflection, like what we are actually seeing about what our country actually is facing. So in this case, some education is actually needed. And of course, the measure of a degree is what was stipulated by the Constitution, that each of the citizens of this country must be able to agree that they must meet the demand. So in that case, although I'm very much of the opinion that the leadership, or those who are questioning for leadership, those who want to occupy positions of leadership, they must be able to prove beyond any reasonable doubt that they are qualified beyond the demand that is required by the IEPC, especially for this election process. So in this case, I totally support the idea of a degree. And as I said earlier, of course, I said that having a degree is not a measure of success, but it is a measure of requirement.
It's a measure of requirement.
Yes.
At this particular, Tab, let me get your point on this, because in the last election, the presidential election was nullified because of the process, and IBC received a fair share of blame game, of the blame. But then, do you think they've gotten it right this time around?
I think first of all,
they're learning from the past.
I think first of all, you should give Daktari maybe another session to tell us about success and education, because he seems to have a first-hand experience, or on that. Maybe he can lecture us a bit on that next time. But then I think IBC, we've had complaints before about it not being able to pull up some of what we'll expect as clarity and execution of function as what is required of them, and therefore there's been issues of processes that have led to a nullification of election due to irregularities before. So this time we are seeing them coming and telling us about the voters registration, the registrar, and they're literally telling us that there are things that have not been considered or been audited in the register, and therefore them as a commission or as the electoral commission, they have owned up to the fact that they have a duty to play in terms of clearing or cleaning the voters register, so that we are able to know that how many Kenyans are eligible to voting, and how many of them since that time were able to, died, or how many have been added into the register. We just need to know the concrete number. So them coming out in the public and also telling us about the fact that they've not done that and owning up, maybe it's a pointer towards the right direction. And it should also be noted that there are also response to public outcry and even the cries from different political divides. We saw the Deputy President, Kenya Kwanza, presidential candidate flag bearer, saying about having suspicions that there might be a movement of his 1 million votes from the voter register. And it's something that he said has grounds, he has proofs. And as you know, I will say from a layman's way of thinking, I was wondering how an outsider will do that. So maybe now the IBC, we saw them coming out the other day and telling us that these are things that they are addressing. So that means we have hope, and we literally believe that we are going to have... Because
they're trying to redeem themselves from the blame game.
These blames.
Having had what Honorable Odinga, the 10 questions they raised, the credibility of the commission in readiness for this election. But Daktari, responding to that, Chebukati and his commission seem to be so serious about this thing this time around, because perhaps he feels that this is the last time they're going to get it right, or not, because it was so expensive to have a repeat of the last election, if you remember. They were not ready for that.
I think, Oloo, what we must also understand, IEPC, as we are talking today, Oloo, is the main focus of our political management in this country.
Right.
And if they will get it wrong, it will be very wrong. Because we have a history in this country whereby when election is not managed well, it has got so many repercussions as what we saw in 2007. And in this case, we don't want a repeat of the same. And as well as there was an allocation, Oloo, I think the IEPC came out very openly that there were some activities which were done by some officers, which they did commit themselves that there was something fishy was being carried out, which of course they promised the country that they are going to correct that mess, and there will be no, there should be no worry of alarm as on the same. So personally, although much has been said about IEPC, but what I'm seeing, and I have a lot of confidence in the management and then the way they have managed our by-elections. We have seen a lot of success. And in the whole thing, not many people are really complaining, even though His Excellency the Deputy President spoke something about a 1 million movement of some whatever. He also, accept the fact that the current IEPC is actually still very intact, and it is they have done something that should be appreciated by the Kenyans. Personally, I appreciate, and I have a lot of confidence in the IEPC as it is now.
Okay, so gentlemen and lady, we all agree that as per the law, degrees recommended
yes,
in this case?
Victor, a friend of mine has just seen how accomplished in terms of education the career is, and the friend is asking if Dr. is saying that a degree is not is a secondary in terms of success and delivery, then should we also say we should also go to the background and check about this doctorate title? I'm just kidding. In the life.
Really?
Yes, because they're arguing with the virtue of you going to school and acquiring this. You have an accomplishment in this and that, and then you should be able to appreciate what the system does to an individual.
I like that. I must appreciate my concern. And
it's valid.
It's valid. May God bless you so much.
Okay.
And then what I'm saying, Oloo, what I said, the law demands. And that is actually the demand by the law, that we need to have a degree. That in itself,
at least we have to appreciate that.
I really don't dispute that.
That's the basic
That's what I said. It must be as by that, because I'm not disloyal to the law. But what I'm just saying, a degree is not a measure of success. Success in this case, Oloo, what my mind tells me about those people who have never even acquired a degree. Some of them, they have been successful business people. They have been successful consultants. They have been in their own capacity.
So in this
case, when I talk about
it's relative.
If it is a relative thing. If the demand for a degree was anything to go by, that means those people would be very poor.
Okay. All right, let's just close that discussion, because now it's the IBC still sitting, the tribunal listening to a number of cases there, because as per their cost list, they have almost around 200 and something or 300 petitions. Sorry? 263, and they have got a 10-day ultimatum to come up with decisions and the judgments and what have you. So they have got a tight schedule sitting at the Milimani Law Court. That is the tribunal led by IEBC Wafula Chebukati. Okay, so we all agree, as per the law, degrees required, and that is just that.
That's okay.
All right, so let's get to the next discussion here, ladies and gentlemen. The issue of 50% plus one vote. That is what all the four candidates are fighting for. So I want us to look at the issue of the swing vote. What's going to determine that 50% plus one? And let me start with you, Wakili. How is it going to play out with just 55 days to go? What's going to be the deciding factor in this?
Remember, there are two major constitutional requirements for you to be a Kenyan president. One, you must have 25% in the majority county. Those are 24 county, going by the number of our county, which are 47. Secondly, you must get the mark of 50% plus one vote, which we are discussing today. Second, you must know that coming from a point of the swing vote, there are a lot of swing vote in this election. One, even the battleground like the Mount Kenya, but in my own view, the major swing vote or the deciding vote will be the undecided voters. Remember, as going by the opinion, the majority opinion poll, we seem to have a 20% undecided voters. That one is totaling to 3.6 to 4 million voters. Remember, we are going into a process in political science that we call voter lock-in. In the next 2 weeks, probably most of the voters will known where they'll vote, but the swing vote or the battles of those voters will be the undecided voters. And for the first time, we seem to be having a very high number of undecided voters. The one that I've mentioned, there are 4 million. If you look at many regions, and I've always mentioned that our politics, we organize them around the ethnic mobilization and ethnic organization and regionals. Most of the regionals have decided an ethnic community where they will vote. if it's the Kambas, probably the majorities have decided whether they'll go with their ethnic elite, who is Kalonzo Musyoka, or probably go with the other local leaders, like probably Mutua, or the chairman for UDA. If there's a Kikuyu, probably the majority of the voters will go either with the Kenya Kwanza or the Azimio. But the biggest voting demography is the undecided voters, who are totaling to 3.6 to 4 million. Yeah.
Okay. Tabitha, the 50% plus one. How much of work, first of all, let me get your opening remarks on it, because it seems to be, basically, again, as required by law, for you to be the president, you must cross that line.
Yes, the law is very clear, and you know, the swing vote is very important because it's the decisive. It literally decides a lot in terms of a president winning or taking the day at the end of the day. So it's very important. So what we are seeing as a factor here is our presidential candidates. They're trying to consolidate their strongholds so that they are sure that this point or this area.
Vote as a block.
Yes, it's a block.
Right.
We have seen the Right Honourable former Prime Minister Raila Odinga in Nyanza and is trying to consolidate the area. Nyanza has a history of voting for Raila over 80% in the past elections. So his greatest undoing this time maybe will be if the percentage reduces. We have seen the side of Honorable the Deputy President William Samoei Ruto also going to Western Kenya and telling them that, and they're very sure they're going to get 70% of votes from that particular part, which I think is a bit skeptical because there is no formula to that. So we are also seeing that the part of Azimio, the factor of bringing us or putting in a deputy president as one of in his candidature, which is also a boost. I think it's a boost towards the candidature of Raila Amolo Odinga in him being a president. So there is a key factor around that bit of having Honorable Martha Karua as a deputy president, because we have seen the kind of knee-jerk reaction that it has pulled from the other side, and the reaction we have found. And also we have seen in Ukambani, I think it was such a great thing that finally we have been talking, Victor, on this show, saying that Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka should make up his mind, because we cannot afford to be playing with time, because politics and time is very crucial. So we've seen him making up his mind, and we are very sure that with the support and the kind of leadership we have at Ukambani and in support of Azimio and the coalition, there is something from Ukambani at the end of the day which is very solid. So the swing vote is a very important aspect in determining the 50+1 and even. It's 25% in major counties. So it only goes without saying that the campaign strategy and how to consolidate the main areas is something that our politicians are doing, both the Kenya Kwanza divide and the Azimio divide. And we just wait to see the next month, because it's going to be really a battle on the ground. You know,
Daktari, most of these politicians, Deputy President William Ruto said that he's going to win first round. The same with Honorable Raila Odinga. First round, and they're home and dry. But they are also aware of the fact of, you know, the two of the, Tabitha and Wakili can all agree that the swing vote region is the determinant here.
Yes.
And they all agree that.
I think, Oloo, when you talk about the swinging vote, you talk about the undecided.
The undecided, exactly.
And then, today,
the undecided and the swing vote?
I don't want to talk about that. The so-called rating, Oloo, has not really convinced me to the level that I can agree that it is scientific or it is done scientifically. But what I want to agree, Oloo, is that when you talk about a regional bloc, this time around we don't have so much bloc. Because the two great gentlemen, Right Honorable Raila Odinga and the Deputy President, have been crossing this country. And when you talk about, for example, Kamba vote, whereby they are standing at about 1.6 or to 2 million, I mean to 2 million voters, In this case, we can categorically say no one among the two will take 100% as a block. They will definitely divide. Maybe
100% is next to impossible because
it is not impossible. That's why that's why I'm going away from the block. Voting as a block means.
But a block we can bring from 70 to 80% of a region.
I disagree with you.
That is not amount to a block.
When you talk about a block, you mean the entire. When you talk about like Tabitha was saying about the Nyanza region, they may vote as a block, and then of course we talk about the Rift Valley region. They may vote as a block, but not necessarily that they are going to be 100% per se. But what we are saying, Oloo, when you look at the two gentlemen really wooing voters from every region,
actually, I think to be fair, we just have to be the four, not the four, because they'll be cleared. What I'm talking Oloo, I'm not referring to those the ones whom I personally call them escorters. They are actually they are escorting the others, because it is now very clear. Oloo, ask anybody, ask a small child today, he will tell you the name of Right Honorable Raila Odinga and then Deputy President, His Excellency the Deputy President William Ruto. So these are the people we should be discussing of. Others may I appreciate that one. So in this case Oloo, when I look at it, Oloo, Mount Kenya is still a decision bench for the winner of this election. And we cannot run away and believe that Mount Kenya is not 4 million, it's not 3.6 million. It is about 6-7 million votes that is actually coming from that area. And in this case, I personally still see Mount Kenya as the main decision. They will give us the direction as you will win this election. Because when you go to Kambani region with 1.6, if the worst come for even the deputy president, he will get something like 600,000 or so, while Raila is pocketing 1 million or so. And then going other places, no, I'm just giving you go to Mount Kenya. But I read somebody by the name Jude Njomo. He was saying that marketing a Simio in Mount Kenya has proved to be very difficult, especially in the presidency of Right Honorable Raila Odinga. So he's talking about 95% votes will go to this deputy president. The docket. So in this case, that means 95% will go. That we may call that one a block. Go to these other places like Rift Valley. You talk about Rift Valley. It may not be 100%, as I said, because Maasais are there, and much of the votes also will go to Right Honorable Raila Odinga, while the rest will go to Ruto. So by the end of the day, it is very difficult, Oloo, to determine, as of now, about 50 plus as to who will win. But going by my own observation, Oloo, it is very dark to tell as to who, because by last time when we were discussing here, we were seeing Ruto was about 60%, while Raila was trailing with a difference of about 8%. But now we are talking about as by the latest ratings, which I told you I disagree. I don't really agree with most of them. Is that they are equal, and then both of them are posting that they are going to make 50 plus 1, which of course the Kenyans will determine. Yes. Wakili, Mount Kenya is a factor, so to speak, all right? Most of because the moment Martha Karua was picked as the deputy running mate for Honorable Raila Odinga, she immediately swung into action, and the first point of her campaign was in Mount Kenya, and she campaigned there for close to 6 to 10 days straight in Mount Kenya. Then Mount Kenya is a factor, so to speak, but then let's talk about the issue of Western Kenya. All right, the deputy president has been campaigning in Western Kenya. Honorable Raila Odinga has also been campaigning in Western Kenya, and perhaps these two regions have it's a fertile ground for these politicians to look for votes.
Remember, to start with Mount Kenya, in that years, it's the first time that Mount Kenya do not have a major presidential candidate or a substantive presidential candidate. That's why probably it is seen to be a battleground. Before Raila Odinga had picked Martha Karua, it was primarily and strategically seen to be a Ruto political zone. You remember he has been spending 9 years and 4 years positioning as a kingmaker, probably gone to some extent of being probably a de facto king. But the kingmaker, the king still remains President Uhuru Kenyatta. So Martha Karua has changed a lot. Remember now the politics of Mount Kenya has moved from the Ruto Raila. It's now Rigathi and Mother. Remember these two running mates, we are calling the presumptive president. If one of the camp wins, this person is just a heartbeat away from becoming a president.
Yes.
So the Mount Kenya people are asking their question, between the Karua and the Rigathi presidency, which one can be a better president to them? And actually most of them are answering the question in the affirmative, that a Karua presidency can be better than a Rigathi presidency. Secondly, remember these two of them are poisoned to be the kingmakers if either of their camps win. If Ruto's camp win, there's be a high possibility that Rigathi may take from President Uhuru Kenyatta as the Mount Kenya kingpin. If Raila wins, Mother Karua will take over as the Kikuyu kingpin. So the Kikuyu are also asking themselves between Rigathi and Karua, or between this alliance of integrity and the other unholy alliance, who one do you prefer, or who one do you take? In the Western region, remember Raila Odinga has always been the de facto kingpin of the Western. What William Ruto has noticed, if he will not be able to get 85 and 90% vote in Mount Kenya, which is very unlikely, he's trying to eat into the Raila's stronghold, especially targeting the South Nyanza, the Western and the coast, so that he will be able to feel the less percentage of votes that he would have gotten from the Mount Kenya. Remember, we have mentioned this show many times that when you are running a seat in America, they normally ask you what is your path to the presidency. 100% blue state and probably 100% red state. In 2013 and 2017, the path to the president of President Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto was 100% turnout Mount Kenya, 100% turnout Rift Valley. And that
seems to have changed.
Yeah, that's what the deputy president had planned to begin with 2022 before the handshake. Now that the handshake has come, of course he knows in the Rift Valley he may get probably 85 to 90. So the biggest worry is now the Mount Kenya. If Ruto will not get above 70% of the vote of the Mount Kenya, he can well forget of the presidency. But now the new strategy that he is employing is now eating into the stronghold of Mr. Raila Odinga in the interest, one, of topping the Mount Kenya turnout, which will be very low to him, and secondly, trying to reduce some percentage of the Raila Odinga in what he has been getting in these two strongholds. Remember, Raila Odinga has been the king for Nyanza and a de facto kingpin for the coast and the Western.
You've raised some point there, but Tabitha, 70% for Deputy President William Ruto in Mount Kenya, the entrance of Martha Karua and Rigathi Gachagua, that has completely neutralized that arithmetic of 70%, so to speak.
Yes.
If he doesn't get the 70%, perhaps he'll have to move to another region to compensate for that lost mark to hit the 70%. For Deputy President.
Yes, I think, again, the polls, you know, sometimes we want to theoretically analyze this, but the polls, as much as Daktari will not agree with what the polls are stating, not all of them are compromised. So the Star latest poll on the Central Kenya presidential campaign and the threshold over there, the Deputy President still leads at 49.4%, considerably with what he was leading with in the past before Martha effect came in. And Honorable Raila Odinga, according to the Star, is at 20.9%. Now, the swing vote here is the central Kenya, if you ask me, because I think that is the swing vote, because all of these presidential candidates want to get a little bit of votes from this particular place. This does not underscore the fact that, Gachagua, Honorable Gachagua, and Martha Karua are both from central Kenya.
Yes.
But the gender issue, which according to Kenya Kwanza is not the agenda, is a very interesting bit, as what Okilia said, the affirmative reasoning and conceptualizing of this whole debate on why Martha Karua has literally, I would say, brought some sort of uproar in the camp of Kenya Kwanza in terms of her and the numbers, the kind of attention she's getting from central Kenya. Remember, Martha Karua and Gachagua. Martha Karua, I think, in our own qualifications, she is a stronger candidate in terms of, if you look at it, and even popularity. Gachagua might be as good, but Martha Karua, apart from just being an integral leader and having a very good track record, she's more popular. And therefore, the gender card, and at the same time, her popularity and the trust that the people have with her, and of course, also the perception that at some point, of course, as a country, we will have seen her as one of the best people to be chosen as deputy president, is an issue that is playing here. In Western Kenya, however, we cannot in totality say that as much as the deputy president, I've seen him very vibrant in Migori as part of the Nyanza part of Kenya. He's trying to get some numbers there. But at the end of the day, he cannot outdo Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga in Nyanza. He will have to do a lot of work over there. Because what he does, as we started saying, I think from the start of this year, when Right Honorable William Ruto does not go, for example, to Nyanza, he does not have foot soldiers. He has to be everywhere, every time, by himself for his presence to be felt. So the fact that he doesn't have, I would say, very strong leaders pushing the agenda of Kenya Kwanza in the western parts of Kenya, even minus his presence, and he can't be in the western parts of Kenya pushing for his agenda every time, is something that is in his undoing, and maybe that explains why he might not be able to gain a lot. And as what Wakilia said in the course, Raila Odinga, as always, has been a de facto, I would say, kingpin, and therefore there is a lot to play there. But as you realize, right now, I'll tell you, just in a layman's again perspective, if you go to Kisumu today, we have a very big billboard of Honorable William Ruto and Gachagua, their presidency. And then we have seen in areas like Bomet, where when there was a billboard of Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, which was torn down. So we have this idea of political tolerance, which maybe can attribute to the fact that we are accepting that we do not need to vote along tribal lines or ethnicity. So it might be a factor. So this said and done, we cannot also dismiss the fact that the polls are indicating very well that the central parts of Kenya are warming up to an Azimio presidency, and this is as a result of Karua effect and the gender and the affirmative action part of it.
Dr. Before you continue, allow me to take a quick break, and when we come back, I'll just get straight into it, because she's raised so many points there, Martha Karua effect, but I also want to talk about the Musalia Mudavadi effect. They talk about not 70%, they talk about 80 and 90% of Western Kenya. From the past elections, Honorable Raila Odinga got almost five regions in Western Kenya.
Yes.
It's exactly. So how is it going to shift all of a sudden? That's some of the things that I want us to discuss when we come back. It's about the 50% plus one question. Let's take a break. We'll be back.